This is Buddy Glass back on the page. Buddy Glass, of course, is only my pen name. My real name is Major George Fielding Anticlimax. I'm feeling overexcited and a little dramatic myself, and my every heated impulse at this second is to make literally starry promises to the reader for our rendezvous tomorrow night. But if I'm smart, I think I'll just brush my tooth and run along to bed. If my brother's long memo was rather taxing to read, it was positively exhausting, I can't forbear to add, to type out for my friends. At this moment, I'm wearing that handsome firmament he offered me as a hurry up and get well from your hepatitis and faint-heartedness present down around my knees. Will it be too rash of me, though, to tell the reader what I intend to do beginning tomorrow night? For 10 years and more, I've dreamed of having the question, quote, "What did your brother look like?" end of quote, put to me by someone with no special preference for brief, crisp answers to very direct questions. In short, the piece of writing in this world, quote, the something, the anything, end of quote, that my recommended organ of authority tells me I'd most enjoy curling up with is a full physical description of Seymour written by somebody who isn't in an all-fired hurry to get him off his chest in a properly shameless word, myself. His hair jumping in the barber shop. This is tomorrow night, and I'm sitting here, it goes without saying, in my tuxedo. His hair jumping in the barber shop. Jesus God, is that my opening line? Is this room going to fill up slowly, slowly with corn muffins and apple pie? It may. I don't want to believe it, but it may. If I push for selectiveness and a description, I'll quit cold again before I start. I can't sort out, can't clerk with this man. I can hope that some things will be bound to get done here with passing sensibility, but let me not screen every damned sentence for once in my life, or I'm through again. His jumping hair in the barbershop is absolutely the first pressing thing that comes to mind. We went for haircuts usually every second broadcast day or once every 2 weeks, right after school was out. The barbershop was at 108th and Broadway, nested verdantly, stop that now, between a Chinese restaurant and a kosher delicatessen. If we'd forgotten to eat lunch, or more likely lost it somewhere, we sometimes bought about 15 cents worth of sliced salami and a couple of new dill pickles and ate them in our chairs, at least till the hair started to fall. Mario and Victor were the barbers, probably passed on these many years of an overdose of garlic the way all New York barbers eventually go. All right, cut that out, just manage to nip that stuff in the bud, please. Our chairs were adjoining, and when Mario had finished with me and was ready to take off and shake out that cloth throwover, I never failed to have more of Seymour's hair on me than my own. Few things in my life before or since have riled me more. Only once did I put in a complaint about it, and that was a colossal mistake. I said something in a distinctly ratty tone of voice about his damn hair always jumping all over me. The instant I said it, I was sorry, but it was out. He didn't say anything, but he immediately started to worry about it. It grew worse as we walked home, crossing streets in silence. He was obviously trying to divine a way of forbidding his hair to jump on his brother in the barbershop. The home stretch on 110th, the long block from Broadway to our building on the corner of Riverside, was the worst. No one in the family could worry his or her way down that block the way Seymour could if he had decent material. Which is enough for one night. I'm exhausted. Just this one other thing. What is it I want, italics all mine, from a physical description of him? More, what do I want it to do? I want it to get to the magazine. Yes, I want to publish it, but that isn't it. I always want to publish. It has more to do with the way I want to submit it to the magazine. In fact, it has everything to do with that. I think I know. I know very well I know. I want it to get down there without my using either stamps or a manila envelope. If it's a true description, I should be able to just give it train fare and maybe pack a sandwich for it and a little something hot in a thermos, and that's all. The other passengers in the car must move slightly away from it as though it were a trifle high. Oh, marvelous thought. Let him come out of this a trifle high. But what kind of high? High, I think, like someone you love coming up on the porch, grinning after 3 hard sets of tennis, victorious tennis, to ask you if you saw that last shot he made. Yes, oui! Another night. This is to be read, remember. Tell the reader where you are. Be friendly, you never know. But of course, I'm in the conservatory. I've just rung for the port, and it will be brought in at any moment by the old family retainer, an exceptionally intelligent, fat, sleek mouse who eats everything in the house except examination papers. I'm going back to S's hair since it's already on the page, till it started coming out at about 19 in handfuls. He had very wiry black hair. The word is almost kinky, but not quite. I think I'd feel determined to use it if it had been. It was most exceedingly pullable looking hair, and pulled it surely got. The babies in the family always automatically reached for it, even before the nose, which, God wot, was also outstanding. But one thing at a time. A very hairy man, youth, adolescent. The other kids in the family, not exclusively, but especially the boys, the many pre-puberty boys we always seem to have around the house, used to be fascinated by his wrists and hands. My brother, Walt, at about 11, had a routine of looking at Seymour's wrists and inviting him to take off his sweater. "Take off your sweater. Hey, Seymour, go ahead. Hey, it's warm in here." S would beam back at him, shine back at him. He loved that kind of horseplay from any of the kids. I did too, but only off and on. He did invariably. He thrived, too, waxed strong on all tactless or under-considered remarks directed at him by family minors. In 1959, in fact, when on occasion I hear rather nettling news of the doings of my youngest brother and sister, I think on the quantities of joy they brought S. I remember Franny, at about 4, sitting on his lap facing him and saying with immense admiration, "Seymour, your teeth are so nice and yellow." He literally staggered over to me to ask if I'd heard what she said. One remark in this last paragraph stops me cold. Why did I like horseplay from the kids only off and on? Undoubtedly because it sometimes had a fair amount of malice in it when it was directed at me. Not that I most probably didn't have it coming to me. What, I wonder, does the reader know of large families? More important, how much can he stand hearing on the subject from me? I must say at least this much. If you're an older brother in a large family, particularly where, as with Seymour and Franny, there's an age difference of roughly 18 years, and you either cast yourself or just not very advertently become cast in the role of local tutor or mentor, it's almost impossible not to turn into a monitor, too. But even monitors come in individual shapes, sizes, and colors. For example, when Seymour told one of the twins, or Zoe, or Franny, or even Madame Boo-Boo, who was only 2 years younger than myself, and often entirely the lady, to take off his or her rubbers on coming into the apartment, each and all of them knew he mostly meant that the floor would get tracked up if they didn't, and that Bessie would have to get out the mop. When I told them to take off their rubbers, they knew I mostly meant that people who didn't were slobs. It was bound to make no small difference in the way they kidded or ragged us separately, a confession I groan to overhear that can't avoid sounding suspiciously honest and ingratiating. What can I do about it? Am I to hold up the whole works every time an Honest John tone comes into my voice? Can't I count on the readers knowing that I wouldn't play myself down, in this instance stress my poor leadership qualities, if I didn't feel certain that I was much more than lukewarmly tolerated in that house? Would it help to tell you my age again? I'm a gray-haired, flaccid-bottomed 40 as I write this, with a fair-sized pot and some commensurately fair-sized chances, I hope, of not throwing my silver pusher on the floor because I'm not going to make the basketball squad this year, because my salute isn't snappy enough to send me to officer candidate school. Besides, a confessional passage has probably never been written that didn't stink a little bit of the writer's pride in having given up his pride. The thing to listen for every time with a public confessor is what he's not confessing to. At a certain period of his life, usually grievous to say a successful period, a man may suddenly feel it within his power to confess that he cheated on his final exams at college. He may even choose to reveal that between the ages of 22 and 24, he was sexually impotent. But these gallant confessions in themselves are no guarantee that we'll find out whether he once got piqued at his pet hamster and stepped on its head. I'm sorry to go on about this, but it seems to me I have a legitimate worry here. I'm writing about the only person I've ever known whom, on my terms, I considered really large, and the only person of any considerable dimensions I've ever known who never gave me a moment's suspicion that he kept, on the sly, a whole closet full of naughty, tiresome little vanities. I find it dreadful, in fact, sinister, even to have to wonder whether I may not occasionally be nosing him out in popularity on the page. You'll pardon me, maybe, for saying so, but not all readers are skilled readers. When Seymour was 21, a nearly full professor of English, and had already been teaching for 2 years, I asked him what, if anything, got him down about teaching. He said he didn't think that anything about it got him exactly down, but there was one thing he thought that frightened him: reading the penciled notations in the margins of books in the college library. Of course, now I'm going to make a margin in the book about that. I'll finish this. Not all readers, I repeat, are skilled readers, and I'm told critics tell us everything, and the worst first, that I have many surface charms as a writer. I wholeheartedly fear that there is a type of reader who may find it somewhat winning of me to have lived to be 40, i.e., unlike another person on the page, not to have been, quote, selfish, end of quote, enough to commit suicide and leave my whole loving family high and dry. I said I'd finish this, but I'm not going to make it after all, not because I'm not a proper Iron Man, but because to finish it right now I'd have to touch on, touch on the details of his suicide, and I don't expect to be ready to do that at the rate I'm going for several more years. I'll tell you one thing, though, before I go to bed that seems to me vastly pertinent, and I'd be grateful if everybody tried his hardest not to consider this a categorical afterthought. I can give you that is one perfectly explorable reason that makes my being 40 at this writing a monstrous disadvantage. Seymour was dead at 31. Even to bring him up to that exceedingly unhoary age will take me many, many months, as I'm geared, and probably years. For the present, you'll see him almost exclusively as a child and young boy, never, I hope to God, as a nipper. While I'm with him in the business on the page, I'll be a child and young boy too, but always I'll be aware, and so I believe will the reader, if rather less partisanly, that a somewhat paunchy and very nearly middle-aged man is running this show. In my view, this thought is no more melancholy than most of the facts of life and death, but no less either. You've only my word for it so far, but I must tell you that I know as well as I know anything that if our positions were switched around and Seymour were in my seat, he would be so affected, so stricken, in fact, by his gross seniority as narrator and official shot caller, that he'd abandon this project. I'll say no more about it, of course, but I'm glad it came up. It's the truth. Please don't simply see it. Feel it.